Okay, folks, I'm just going to go over a few of the things you need to understand about how to do this type of problem. There's a lot to take in, but by doing enough examples, it's going to start to become a little bit clearer what's happening in this type of work that you're doing. The first thing that I needed to do was, you've got an arrow pointing this way, so we're looking at this face and we're sectioning it through the line A. Okay, now that means we're cutting across here, okay, and through here. And when we slice through, the first thing you need to notice is that this line here is actually sitting between the two parts, okay? So because it's in front of that face, you're not actually cutting that face. So it's kind of like you don't hatch the hole, okay? You're not going to hatch this face either. Okay, now the first thing I did when I did this drawing the first time was I made this this width, okay? Now you've actually got to come back to here, okay? So you've got to add in, you've got to have this width plus the thickness of the wall of this hole, okay? So that was the first mistake that I made. So we're not hatching any of that, we're not hatching the hole, and then when we get to this part here, that's where we're going to hatch, okay? So that's something to take into account. The other thing you need to take into account is the total length of the object. So you've got from here to here a 32, and then that's to the center of this hole, and from the center of this hole to the center of this hole, you've got 48. And then you've got the radius of this big circle on top, okay, this big circle. And we know that that's a 40, okay? So half of a 40 is going to be a 20. So you've got to take your 32 from that edge to the center, plus your 48, and then add in half of the 40, which is the whole of this, the radius of this, which is a 20. So we get 100 millimeters. So you want to set out your distance at 100 millimeters. That's the first thing you need to understand. And then you need to start thinking about other heights and other distances. So what I've done is I've restarted this drawing. So as you can see, the first mistake I made was this area here. Okay, I made it too narrow because I forgot the wall thickness. Okay, and then I marked out a distance of 100 millimeters. So I make sure I'm getting my distances right. And so I knew that this was 6 plus 6 plus the wall thickness. Now, how do I work out that wall thickness? We've got a 28 diameter for this hole, and then the big circle, we know across is 40, okay? So 40 minus 28 is 12. So there's a difference of 12 between those two circles, and then this edge here is, of course, divided by 2 because you've got an edge on each side. So the 12 is divided by 2. So this thickness here of the wall is 6 millimeters. And you'll find using the same logic that this is also 6 millimeters here. Okay, so I've gone the 12 plus the wall thickness, because we go from here to here is 12, and then we go across to here. Okay, and we don't section that because the section line is in front of it. Okay, so it's 12 plus 6. Okay, so 12 plus 6 is 18. So if you look here, you've got a distance of 18. Okay, and then what I did was I got my first center hole, which is 32 from this edge. So I measured 32 millimeters across, and I drew that one. And then I measured 48, and I drew that one. Okay, so that's giving you a nice thing to measure up against. And then what I did was I centered each of these holes about the center line. We know that one's 28. So I measured 14 either side of that center line, and we know this one's also 28. So I measured 14 either side of that, okay? Then I know from the top of this surface here up to the top of this part of the part, we've got 16, okay? So, because we've got 16, so you just have to look for the measurements. So I measured up 16, okay? And I put lots of guidelines in just to make my life easy, okay? So I've come up 16, I drew a guideline. And then we know that this distance from the top of this to the bottom of this part here, before it hits here, is 12. Okay, so I measured from the top down here and made sure that that distance was 12 millimeters. okay? And then I knew that the wall thickness is 6, because we already talked about how we worked that out. So I knew that I had to come from the edge of that wall across until I hit a thickness of 6 mils, okay? Once I've got that all in, all I need to do then is go around my drawing and firm it up. And then I just need to be mindful of what I've actually sectioned. Now, like I said, the section line was in front of this part, so it didn't get sectioned. And then I came in here, and of course, that's where the cutting starts to happen. So we hatch at 45 degrees just to show that this part of the assembly is actually being cut. And that is essentially your sectioned view of that part. If you can see anything that I have done wrong, please by all means let me know. But like I said, if you go around, you can measure that that's 12 mils. Wall thicknesses are 6 mils either side of the hole. The diameters are correct. The total length is 100 mils. So it all works out nicely. So I will upload both these pages, both of this nasty working out that I've done, and this finished drawing, and you can have a look at it, and if you can see anything wrong with it, by all means let me know. But I think that's very close to what a correct solution would be. Thank you.